How's it, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Version 8 Marketing Podcast. My name is Jandre, and I'm your host today. And in studio, we have Nanga Ntsume. And Nanga, you're one of the owners of a company called Luna Digital. You and Aaron Binder. From my side, Nanga and I, we both have agencies. And, even though I think we could easily see each other as competition, I think we've embraced the fact that we share the same passion and interests, and we use opportunities like this to learn from each other, right?
Sure.
And that's one of the main reasons why Nanga's on the podcast today. So we're going to talk about social media branding, specifically for small to medium sized businesses, what you can do on social media in order to get your brand out there. Like, we've been inundated with emails, specifically companies now post lockdown saying, like, I need to get my brand out there. I need to get the awareness going. I need to tell people that I've launched online, or I've got products online, or that our services are now back up and running. And I think it would be a perfect podcast to launch, post lockdown with, because I think you're going to add a lot of value. So thanks for coming in today.
Pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Cool, man. And you said the lockdown, how's it been for you guys? Everything all right? Good.
Lockdown's been good for us. I think like any other business right now, you're going to have your ups and downs. So, we have lost a bit of revenue. We have clients that are still on board. But I think one thing that I've seen and that I'm very chuffed about is the clients that are getting in touch with us are the ones, like you're mentioning, that want to kickstart their brands, whether they weren't online and they want to jump online, or they were doing stuff before, but now they actually want to take it to the next level. So, we've been in a good situation. Also, prior lockdown, we've hired our first actually team member, should I say, I hate the word staff, team member. Because prior to that, it was just myself and Erwin, and we brought on Vivaldo, and that's just taken weights not only on my hands, but on Erwin's hands as well. And we're building the business pretty well now, so I'm pretty chuffed.
That's awesome, man. And I think one of the biggest burning questions now business owners are asking themselves, like, should I have been advertising during lockdown? Would I have seen the benefits today if I did? And I think, one of my questions is, like, what is your perspective on that? And the reason I'm asking that is because we advertised straight through lockdown, and we had a lot of clients who questioned the strategy, and today we can see that it actually is, paying off. Like, we have people now emailing us daily going, I got your emails during the lockdown, I got your ads, I downloaded the book. We actually at a point where now we want to do this, and because you've been in our faces, they don't say those exact words, but as you can say, like, because we've been in their faces, like, we've been top of mind, and because they now want to kickstart their businesses, we're one of the first agencies that they probably think about. And we've done very similar things for our clients. So, what was your perspective? Like, do you use lockdown as a time to, have a lights on strategy? Sometimes you don't have a choice, but what do you do? Like, do you keep advertising, or what was your suggestion to the clients?
Well, let's start here. I think we're approaching the end of lockdown. So at the height of it, you missed the opportunity, right? You missed the bulk of the opportunity where so many people were at home and fearful and they weren't moving. Now we're approaching level 2, level 1, where people are out on the road again. They're back to the normal routine whereby I'm going to go out, do my thing. I'll check social media when I have time, or for escapism in the afternoon. So with our clients specifically, we did run ads during it. Obviously, we had clients that put out, like I said, but there's only so much that you can do to encourage them and tell them why, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes an educational thing. So from our side, we said, okay, cool, we understand your situation, put on pause. For the ones that did continue advertising, the cost per leads, cost per acquisition, all the result-driven metrics that you wanted became so much cheaper. And with that being said, people actually invested more money into it. So we've seen clients actually, let's not say double their spend, but increase their spend because they saw that, listen, there's a big opportunity here, opening up the funnel a lot wider because everyone's at home, stuck on their phones, they're fearful, it's sad in our society. Not many people are reading and doing those other things. You can't really blame them. But, for a lot of our clients, they saw really decent results and very chuffed because from our side as a business, those are really decent results and case studies that we can now use to put forward to other clients. And again, it's not going to be the same because lockdown's different now. We've come out of lockdown or coming out of lockdown. So we're going to start seeing the competition increase again. We're going to start seeing the cost being driven up again. And it's going to be a fight for attention, fighting on the dance floor, like the analogy used in the previous time. So let's not say don't run advertising right now. I would think do it, but be very cautious of now what are you going to do?
Yeah. What's your strategy?
What's your strategy coming out of this? Because it's a bit more expensive again.
So, that's one of the things that we discussed with our clients and said, look, and I think maybe some business owners have heard this before and maybe some of them are tired of hearing it, but in essence, we always say add value to your audience as much as you can. And in lockdown, we even, emphasize that a lot more. So we focused on adding a lot more value in terms of, in a contextual manner, in terms of lockdown. And I think to the question of should you advertise on, a lot of companies can't advertise just purely because of the fact that they don't have the money. But I think if you are a business that was semi-operational, or at least had some cash reserves, like, it would have been a smart strategy to keep, showing up in people's faces. And we've seen that with our clients. Like, we focused a lot on database building, and our own database grew with about 6,000 or 4,000, different SMEs.
Nice.
And it was at R1.50 or like 2-3 rand a subscriber, technically, if you will, which was ridiculously low. And now we're seeing the benefits of that. And I think a lot of people are now in the position to start reaping those rewards. The ones who obviously did focus on the right strategies. Yeah,
you got to look at it. It's like, I spend R1 to potentially close, and if your closing rate's like 10%, let's say, for example, so you bring in 10 people and you close one at R1 that you already brought them through the gate. I mean, that one client equates to, I don't know, but whatever your service packaging is per month, it's a bargain. It's like a 5,000
it's all return. 100%. It's all relevant to, your service, what you're actually offering. So for us, conversion rates are a lot lower, but it's not about that. It's about actually making an impact. Sure. Because the bigger the impact of the business that you have, the more people will start, obviously, gravitate towards you. More business owners will start to take note. And it's not necessarily about the people in the database, but it's those, like today, we had someone going, I love reading your articles, I love listening to the podcast, and obviously we're very honored to have gotten that feedback. But, he's got a mate now who wants to start a business, and he's introduced his mate to us. So I think that's what it comes down to, is about making an impact, which then essentially will obviously help you grow the business. But I think, so today, we're going to double down on, what brands should be doing on social media now post-lockdown, specifically small to medium-sized brands. And I'm very grateful to have you here, by the way, if I haven't said that already. So thanks for coming through. But yeah, man. So, if you are a small to medium-sized business right now, Nanga, like, essentially, if I had to come to you and say, look, I've got, let's say, 10 grand available per month, and I now want to start focusing on my services, essentially, what would your advice be to those kind of business owners? Like, considering that 10 grand it's to some companies it might be a lot. For very small businesses, we get that, but in essence, on the bigger picture of things, it's really not that much. So, like, what would your advice be for a small business owner that had to come to you and say, look, I've got 10 grand a month, like, what do I do right now in terms of post-lockdown social media marketing?
For sure. I'd start off by just assessing what is the service and product, from my side. So I won't just go directly in and advise anything. So I just want to tailor something specific to that business. So should we start off in the fitness industry, let's say?
Yeah, pick whatever you want. Like, I think it doesn't, it all boils down to the same message, I suppose.
Yeah. So let's take fitness, for example. We've got a great audience on Facebook and Instagram, right? It's where all the content's built for that. So on that 10,000 Rand, and you're selling a DTC product, I would focus on definitely running Facebook and Instagram ads. Reason being is because, again, like we're saying, that the cost for the attention is very low. Attention is the currency, right? So I'd put 5,000 Rand towards my budget on running paid ads. And then I would, to be very honest with you, and this is something that I'm really looking into nowadays, and if you can afford it as a brand, you can do it for free but pay. I would look into influencer marketing, man. We're moving into a day and an age where, especially in this country now, I was having this conversation with the team, especially in this country, we are now entering an age where our influencers have a lot more value. Back in the States, they had all that equity, they had the infrastructure for influencers to be able to push branded products. Now we're starting to build and be able to cater and pick different influencers that we want in the different scenes. So I would look into either providing them with free products or paying them for a post or something like that. But I think it's a great way of tapping into their audience, because their audience is your customer as well, because they're in the fitness industry. So I would allocate about 50% of my money into paid advertising and the other 50% into influencer marketing.
Okay, and influencer marketing is obviously a growing category, and I think a lot of brands are leaning towards that. You mentioning, let's start with the paid suggestion. A lot of people don't necessarily know what that entails. So they would like, okay, cool, I'm going to give Facebook and Instagram 5,000 Rand, but what does that really mean? Am I going to drive traffic? Am I going to build my brand? And I think what I'm actually asking here is that should brands spend money on focusing on growing their own following per se, or should they rather just put that money straight into, you know, getting people through the door in terms of driving traffic to the site or driving awareness about the product or the service that they're offering? Like, is it still worth building your own audience? Because the first thing that small business and medium-sized business owners think when you spend money on Facebook, they think, I need to run page like ads, or I need to get people to like my page. Like, is that really the best strategy today?
No. Running page like campaigns and all those other things, no, definitely don't. Running ads is a risk. Running a business is a risk. I would ask, do you have the capacity and the money to build brand awareness and not sales? And if you can, I would focus on building brand awareness first. And that would be, you know, running just brand awareness campaigns, bringing people to your content, not really your page, making them engage with certain posts and so forth. Things that are engaging. Again, you've got to understand that if you're going to run paid ads, your content needs to be good. People scroll really quick through content. So if it's not engaging enough, you know, you're not going to grab their attention. But if you've got content series that you post, let's say you've got an IGTV series and so forth, then you know it might be engaging and it's short pieces, straight to the point. I'd run some ads, focus on that and build a lot of brand awareness, right? Get you to fall in love with the brand and my content. Then I would run some paid ads at the end, because again, it's like dating. You don't want to approach the person up front and say, hey, buy my product, but they don't know anything about you. Women will literally sidestep you at the bar if you haven't asked her, hey, how are you doing? Your nails and your hair look good, you know? So that's my approach when I look at brand building when running paid ads, is if you can afford to do branded content up front and run brand awareness campaigns, do that, and engagement campaigns, because also a better tactic here decreases your cost per conversion later down the line. So I would advise you to figure out how to run paid ads first, to be very honest with you. You don't want to just go in without the tools. So I would go out, spend some time watching some other professionals that come onto the show right now, like what we're listening to, figure out how do I build ad strategies and how does that look and how does it affect from my top of funnel to the bottom of my funnel. Brand awareness, engagement, conversion. There's a straight up, very simple and easy advertising strategy. But if I can't afford brand awareness, I'd go straight in the paid advertising side. But again, I'd make sure that the messaging and the copy that I'm using is telling a story. I'm not going direct and saying, say 50% off and blah, 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 blah. Write it as a story. You know, you're being direct but indirect. You're letting them buy into the copy and the story, but you know the content and the ad is going to direct you straight to a product that you want them to purchase.
Yeah, so we actually had Charles Schrein here on our was it the very first episode, I think, and we call him the storyteller because he focuses on educating brands on how to sell using stories. And I think you're touching on that right now. It's not necessarily just about bragging about your features of the product or the service that you have. It's about connecting with people and really telling them why this product or service actually exists and why, you know, you're so proud of it as a business to have launched this product or service and what impact it's made in the industry. And I think millennials have the biggest spending power now, and stats do show that these guys buy products and services for the main reason of why you're selling it, or not necessarily, you know, what the product is all about. Like, they want to know why you're selling the product and what you believe in.
It's just like a movie. You wait until the climax because it's like, why am I watching this to build to this point? Take back all the way to who knows when, 1600s or 1700s, 1800s, when they started bringing out motion pictures, right? It was built around storytelling. We are programmed to enjoy stories and movies. So
True.
the same way that you watch and consume is the way you should be able to create and put forth.
No, that's awesome. And I think you've touched on storytelling and not necessarily asking for the sale straight up if it's obviously an audience that's never seen your content before. And if you're a small business, you know, that's most likely the case. You know, any other advice that you would give someone running ads, like on how to get the ads to stand out of this noisy news feed? Because it's technically like a billboard, right? It's a digital billboard. So as opposed to driving on the highway and seeing all these billboards just passing by, you're actually using your thumb and you're visually scrolling through all these digital billboards. So as opposed to telling stories, how do you actually go about standing out of that feed?
So first thing I would do is I'd go to yatext.com. For those of you who don't know, yatext.com allows you to, because on Facebook you can't really bold your content when you're typing, so it's a bit of strategy. I mean, we're actually dropping real nuggets on this thing.
Good, I love it.
Yatext.com allows you to type copy off on an offsite website, copy the bold, italics, whatever you want it to be, a different color even, and you can copy it and post it on on Facebook and it will come out as bold. And people are probably like, I always wanted to bold my things, but I don't know how. How do they do it? That's how you do it, yatext.com. So that stands for...
That's spelled
Y-A-Y-T-X-T.com. So what that does in the consumer's mind is when I'm scrolling, boom, I see bold. Wait a minute, that already grabs my attention because it's a different color to the normal text. And then the content, man, if we take it back to the old like YouTube kind of content, I'd really focus on how do you grab the person's attention in the first 5 seconds. I used to be a YouTuber. I used to create a lot of content back then. And you understood when creating content, the first 5 seconds really matter. And what is that? So you would see often in videos where they will show you a snippet of what the show is for the first 5 seconds, then it goes into the intro into something else. And it might be something so controversial.
It's about getting your attention.
Your feet stink and they smell like what? You know what I mean? It's the first 5 seconds.
And you're like, what?
And it grabs you, throws you in, and it goes into the rest of the video. So you want to be creative, not only on the content, but how do you stand out on the copy side of things? And again, storytelling works really well. You ask questions as well, make people ponder, make people think. You might be very controversial and be like, if you don't read this, you're probably not one of these people. And in your subconscious mind, it's like, are you really calling me out? Okay, cool, let me see.
I want to know if I'm one of these people or not.
100%.
That's very cool. And I think essentially, what it comes down to is, just getting that person's attention. And I think we talk about it a lot, and maybe some of the frequent readers and listeners are probably annoyed of this, but without that necessary attention, you can't articulate what your brand is about. You can't articulate why you exist and what this product or service actually does. And if you don't capture someone's attention, like now, I've got your attention, you've got mine, we're having an intimate discussion and there's value that's being shared, but it's only because we have each other's attention. If you were distracted on your phone, it would ruin the whole experience and you would walk away, not knowing anything extra, and the same with me and vice versa. So I think it's really getting, that person's attention from the bat and making sure that you get all of it. So I think like we call it, interrupted attention versus intentional attention, because a lot of times when you interrupt someone, they're like, hey, I just want to quickly tell you something, and like half of your memory residue is still focusing on the previous task, and then it's allocating 50% of your RAM, if you will, like your memory RAM to this kind of conversation. So you're having two conversations at the same time, even though one might be more of a task, doesn't really matter, but there's 50% of your brain focused on this and 50% of your brain focused on that. And stats do show that us as human beings, we can't multitask. It's just proven time and time again that productivity drops the moment you do more than one thing. And I think it's the same with advertising, is that the moment you don't have someone's intentional attention, your whole message just gets diluted.
Right? And you're bringing people through that gates. I look at lead magnets is what we call them, value pieces, whatever you want to call it. Even if you sell a product, there are ways that you can give out free value. It doesn't have to be discounts all the time. So many people think that I need to give a discount. I've seen this other business from the UK, Manier Devoir, clothing brand. They've been able to scale the business. I've been watching this guy for quite a bit. And I've looked at his ads, no discount codes, but he's been able to scale it. Why? Because he's brought you into the community. He's created a community out of this thing. And however you create the community is up to you. Someone who's doing this very well off advertising and as a business now, right? Because I think let's give some business value. There's a girl in Cape Town called, in Cape Town, she's actually in Joburg, Pretoria, Rabia Khur from switchbeauty.com. Women probably know it's a really good brand. Products are really good. And what she's done to her website now, she's built a forum on the back end. So like how you sign in on a university website, right, to go into the back portal as a customer, she's built that opportunity now for you to engage on the back end with other switch customers. So what she's doing now, she's building a community of women who engage, who might, I don't know, I'm not on the back end, I haven't bought any of the products. But on the back end, create an engagement where people can share and things like that. And it's all about the subconscious. I'd learn books about psychology. I'd learn how the human mind works, what is perceived certain ways. I'd make sure I understand the psych, colors, messaging, communication, and all these things, because they all play a part into it. It's not just what you do in person and how I sit like this and like this, but all those things apply even when you're watching it in content. So
the funny thing is, and I enjoy saying this to a lot of our customers, or clients, is that it's not about understanding the technology, it's more understanding the psychology, and it's purely because of the fact that technology changes, rapidly. So you obviously, as an agency, let us worry, about that. We make sure
side,
we make sure that we know how to technically, scale the campaigns and to make sure that everything is profitable. obviously we add value on the psychological side as well, but we want clients to understand the psychological behavior of their own customers because they help us then come up with better ideas.
And they often don't. I had this with a previous client, won't mention names, but he was like, I came to you guys because you guys were supposed to know everything about my business. I'm like, but we don't. This is, you know, if we did, then we wouldn't be in the situation having this conversation. We understand the technology side. We understand how consumers behave on this platform and how the messaging should be communicated, right? And what content works. But unless you give us information about your brand and you build that, because from the content wasn't too great and all these other things, there was such a disconnect. And we ended up falling out and we lost them as a client. But like you're saying, let us focus on what we know best, with the technology side, and you as the business need to focus on the psychology side of things, right?
Yeah.
How that website looks when someone lands on the homepage, the messaging on that, are they testimonials, are they case studies, are they reviews? Some people don't even have those things. Those things are social proof. A customer won't buy a product unless, even if it's a DTC product brand, unless I've seen customers using it and spraying it on themselves or drinking the thing, whatever it might be. If you have none of that there, people don't want to be the first person to dive into it. And that's what, as a business owner, sometimes you forget as a DTC brand, is that there's social proof that needs to go into the product. And you'll see with a lot of it, some brands don't even have people in their content on their social feed. That's a whole nother conversation. How can you just post the product and no people?
True. Well, I think that's actually a segue to the next question I have before we touch on the influencers, is that, you know, we always advise, especially the smaller to medium-sized businesses who do not have a lot of, I would say, organic followers on their social media channels. They come into the doors and say, "Yo, the previous agency, you know, didn't know what they were doing, or they, you know, ended up not driving any results." And in the beginning, we always thought, these agencies are just not good. Like, the quality of agencies in South Africa is not that great. And I actually think it's the opposite. Like, I think there's some really, really great agencies in South Africa. But the problem is that there's a disconnect, like you've mentioned now, on a macro level, more of what the client actually needs. And a lot of these agencies are creative agencies who essentially want to create creative content that then needs to be distributed on social media. But the problem is they then post those elements to 100 followers, or to 500 followers, or 5,000 followers, or even to 10,000 followers. The business owner then, because he doesn't know any better, and because I think to an extent sometimes the creative agency, you know, they don't necessarily have the right information, or they don't necessarily understand
or guide the business owner correctly.
True, but they also don't understand how these platforms algorithmically actually work. So a lot of them think, you know, when you have 10,000 followers, you need to be speaking to all of them, so you need to be posting to them, which in hindsight is technically true, but the algorithms have changed so much that organic reach on social media is basically dead. So I think, like, one of the things that we usually say to business owners, like, look, you shouldn't be posting organically if you've got... Don't waste your time on that. Like, if you want to do it in your own free time, or if you want your in-house designer to design some stuff for you, or, you know, open Spark Post or Canva, or, like, go nuts. I mean, we're not saying that you shouldn't do it. But what I'm saying is, like, don't spend your hard-earned money on that, because the direct return on investment on that is proven to be zero, just purely because there's no organic reach. So we always advise, like, hey, you do that if you want, but let us run the ads that's actually going to get in front of people, and the ads that are actually going to end up converting people, because, you know, we're using these attention-grabbing videos and GIFs, and we standing out of the feed because of, you know, we're testing long-form and short-form copy and call to actions and whatever you want to do. And I think that's just my perspective, and I wanted to know if you agree on that, because I think that's a burning question.
100%. I say these at my talks as well. If you're going to create organic content, it's not going to flourish. You need to boost it. So people ask me, Nanga, what's the difference between... Nanga, I run my own ads. I say, okay, is it a boosted post or is it a targeted ad? You know, I target it, you know, by people that I said, do you do it on the platform? Do you do it on Business Manager? What's Business Manager? Okay, so you're boosting the post. Cool. There's nothing wrong with boosting a post. Boost organic content. Paid advertising is different, right? Post content, but if you're going to create content, create it for the ads. Don't create it to post it just there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because so many people spend 20 hours creating organic content, exactly, allocate 5 hours for ad content, I would switch it the other way around, like you're saying. So
we actually use the ads that we design as organic content. So what we do is like, we'll design the ads because obviously we understand the platform on a contextual level.
For sure.
So it's like, hey, look, we'll do the ads, and if you want to use this as organic posts, go free, go nuts,
For
like
sure.
do your thing. And a lot of times in the beginning, the business owners are quite shocked because they don't understand. Like, it's usually the other way around. Like, let's post something and let's boost it.
For sure.
And I think that has completely been flipped over the last 2 or 3 years.
100%. I focus a lot of my efforts into creating content for advertising purposes, as opposed to the other way around. Organic reach is at an all-time low. You'd be stupid. You'd really be stupid to think that organic content is the thing. And like you're saying,
More naive, I suppose.
Naive. Yeah, we use different words. But you're not being guided correctly by whoever your agency is, right? Like you're saying, people are so flustered by the content because it looks good, and they are consumers of the feed. So they think when they're creating, what does it look like when I would go onto it, right? But that's not the point. The point is that every month you're spending 10,000 Rand in content organically and you're not doing anything on advertising, you're losing 10,000 Rand a month. That's why we actually cut it out as a service, because we come to understand that business owners really just want conversions. At the end, the business owner wants, the marketing manager wants content, business owner wants the money in his bank.
Yeah.
And we have to ponder to this guy.
Yes.
The one in the middle, my friend, you're good and you're nice and we get along, but you're
not paying our bills.
100%. So, like you're saying, focus more attention on the paid advertising side. Understand how to run paid ads.
And that actually brings me to another question that I actually had is that, should small businesses be hiring agencies? When should they? When shouldn't they? Because it's a very difficult thing that I've seen. And I mean, we vet and qualify our clients and leads just purely because a lot of times we feel that the business isn't ready for an agency. And a lot of times it is ready to take it to the next level. So what is your perspective on that? And then when are they ready and when they're not ready? What would you say?
I think there's no ready, there's no time when you're ready or not ready. I would say you just got to assess what time works for you as the business. So even when starting, right? Let's say you're starting a brand from scratch and you don't know diddle squat about advertising. You're not going to hire your nephew or whatever to do it, right? And if you know that social media is the biggest key successor to a lot of brands doing well, DTC brands, then hire one straight from the get, but then work out the remuneration terms with them and saying, listen, we are taking it off from the ground, but I've got 10,000 Rand allocating to paid ads. Let's do a revenue share model, right? Because those things work as well. So it's just about however you structure that. But if you're asking me, should they? Yes, they should definitely. I would ask a question. Would you hire a finance manager as you grow? Yes, you would. Why? Because you can't do finance forever. Also, they know what you don't know. And as a business owner, you need to focus on your strengths. So you wanting to do everything, and I think this just comes back to innately you as a business owner, like, are you the person that wants to handle everything? Or are you okay with delegation? Because if you are, you understand, right, the benefits in having a specialist working on it. Also, as a business owner, some other things. There are added benefits to having an agency owner than an employee. You don't pay UIF and all these other tax things. The cost of that employee is a lot cheaper. You're not buying coffees, taking him for lunch, and doing all those other things. So you pay us less than what you pay your employer, your employee and your team member, your staff member. Plus, you're going to make more money because you're working with specialists, and there's more people on that account, because if that person doesn't know, he might ask the other team member in that agency who does know, and they will make sure it works. Why? Because they're working to make sure that you get the results, or else their name is tainted. As an employee, 2 o'clock comes and you're sitting, like, yo, I'm tired, man. I don't have to watch Gary Vee. I don't have to watch Billie Jean. I don't have to watch V8's marketing podcast. I'm tired. I don't want to learn more. An agency has to. We need to, because things change all the time, so we're always on top of things. So figure out how the remuneration works. You can start from the beginning, straight from scratch. Rev share model, fixed model. Those are 2 models that agencies offer as a business owner. Speak to your agency before you get into it and see if they are open to other ways, because some people might lock you in a 20,000 Rand retainer and really not generate any results for you. And then or they might generate results, but you're kind of breaking even, and then you like to talk about it, the marketing matter, what are the margins, you're actually losing a lot of money, you know what I mean? So understand, you're going to negotiate. That's what business is, you negotiate for everything, so you might as well negotiate your prices with an agency as well. And then secondly, like I'm saying, yes, you should. There's expertise, there's specialists. We know what we're doing. We understand the technology. We understand psychology as well. Else we wouldn't be running an advertising agency. So, give it up to people who know what they do.
Yeah, and I think one of the other benefits I wanted to add, but I didn't want to interrupt you, was that it's easier to fire an agency than a staff member, right?
100%. Whilst they're going to come with What's the board? CCMA. How come
exactly.
CCMA knock on your door and tell you, listen, you did this unlawfully. Pay my clients.
No, for sure. And I think, the one thing that we've uncovered, and I suppose it depends on what agency you want to go with. And the reason I, in the beginning, said that, is the time, the timing of, I think it's more of the timing of hiring us as an agency, just purely because of the fact that I think every agency is different. And for us, we would just say, look, a lot of times I know for a fact that we're not going to get any results no matter how hard we try, just because the business doesn't have its own foundations in place. So that's where I would say, is your timing right in hiring an agency, or should you get consulting or a specific agency that can get your foundation right for you? But then you might need a specific agency like us or like yourselves that can essentially take your business to the next level, because you've got the foundation and the systems in place to support what's going to happen in terms of paid media, right? So I think for us, if your website is slow performing, yes, we can do the necessary optimizations. Of course we can. But a lot of times we would have a look at a company's website and we're like, you're going to now invite people over to your home. And it's a complete, sorry for my language, but it's a complete shit show. You've got shoes and pants all over the place, and nobody's going to have a good time. It's dirty. You're going to just give that user a very bad experience.
For sure.
So from our side, you need to clean your house up. Create a fresh looking website that's modern, that people enjoy browsing on.
The times.
Exactly. And essentially, once you've sorted that out, then you can hire an agency like ourselves, who essentially could then, start, creating a bit of a paid media strategy that can drive traffic, that you can optimize and analyze and see where are the loopholes in this website of yours, and essentially take it from there and then scale accordingly. And I think a lot of times the agencies are also not straightforward with the business owner, because all they see is money on the table. So the moment the business owner goes, hey, how can you quote me? The agency sees money on the table. So they're like, hey, here's an opportunity. Someone is ready for our service. They don't necessarily always consider whether that business owner, sorry, I know you want to say something, but they don't necessarily always consider whether that business owner is actually at the right frame of mind, state of mind, and actually at the right place for their business to start hiring you specifically as an agency. And I think that's where, and I'm sure you guys are, and I've heard about it and I've seen it before, but like, we're very transparent. We're like, hey, you're not ready for us.
100%. You're not ready for us. Not that you can't afford us, but you've got a couple of optimizations you need to do. We had a prospect call me now last week. Automotive business, selling a whole bunch of things. He's got a 2002 website, so white space on the side, straight down the middle.
Like MS-DOS kind of vibe.
Straight down the middle. And he's like, Nanga, I want to run paid ads. I'm like, I can give you something now that you can look at, right? These are what we're going to charge. But you need to fix your website up first, because we know we're not going to generate results with that looking website. I'm sorry. It's not going to do well. The experience isn't there. People want the experience not only when they come into the malls and into brick and mortar stores, but online as well. Can I shop? Is it free? Is it creative? Is it spacious? And it's not to say you must throw everything on and make it look, but is it straightforward? Like, when I click this, does it take me here? Or do I still need to fix other buttons and so forth? So we're like, listen, we can't work until you fix the website out. The worst part is that he got quoted 400,000 Rand for a website redo.
Eesh.
I told him, listen, my friend.
Was it a software development kind of vibe, or like
did he need CMS on Shopify?
Oh wow!
I saw that he's like, I'm gonna send you this.
Did he have like a huge list of products that took?
Yeah, so I told him they might be quoting you on the time spent of adding in all those products, but even the way I quoted it, right, based off what I used to do at my previous agency, it was about 50 Rand a product. Some little tactics there for business owner when you want to be aware of people are scamming you from a web dev point of view. 50 Rand a product, 50 Rand for static, 100 Rand for variable.
Yeah. Well, that's a couple of years ago, so it's probably like $100 now, whatever.
Yeah, but still, it's not that expensive. It's time. You take a product and you add it, man. Building a website you can do by yourself if you weren't lazy. And they're like 400,000. I'm like, no, this should be a 50 to maybe 100, but 50,000 Rand website straight up.
Yeah.
So fix your home up first before you do anything. But I'm trying to come back to something you spoke about earlier, which is hiring you for the right time. You as a business owner have to understand what works for you right now. We saw the fall of Cosmopolitan, right? That was a big one. Why? Because they were selling you ad space on impressions, let's say for 50,000 Rand, middle of the book. But because they built their own community and it fell, right? It's not rested on anything, so now it's gone under. So, when you're looking at a digital point of view now, it's like all these businesses who thought that print and things were doing so well, but didn't understand that the metrics weren't really backed by much, because what they're selling you on is based off how many people bought the magazine, not how many people looked at your ad, right? So if you're trying to figure out, okay, I need to monitor my results, just like you monitor your sales book and your financials and your accounting, how you should do your digital as well. And that's why digital is going to do really well. David Ogilvy said it very well a couple of years ago. Well, I watched it in 2008, but I don't know. I think he passed away quite some time ago. And he said, we're moving into an era where direct response agencies are going to be way more valuable than above the line. Reason being is because and this is the king of kings in the advertising space, right? He built his brand off high-end TV, radio, and all these other things. And he was saying direct response are going to rule. Reason being is because we need to monitor everything to the T, and that's what they do very well. So my advice to business owners is, when an agency, a creative agency, tells you, oh, we'll make this billboard thing and make it look so nice on the N1, don't buy into it, because they're selling on impressions. You as the business owner have to understand, okay, when I drive, does my wife look at the billboards? No. Do my kids look at the billboards? No. Best believe they're on their phone. WhatsApp about to run some. I was hearing talks of WhatsApp status ads.
Yeah, it's coming.
100%. They're on WhatsApp when they're texting. Boom, there's an ad. Valuable. Stay in tune. They're on Instagram in the back seat. They're on TikTok. They're making TikTok in the car.
And TikTok ads are already live. It's just not in South Africa yet.
So there's a lot of land grab and space that you can take up. As the business owner now, if you're going to run those ads, be aware, okay, cool, if I'm running TikTok in the mornings, right? Kids are on their way to school, they're at school. Okay, what am I going to run? As a business owner, what am I going to run in those times? Not necessarily kids, you know what I mean? If you're going to run it to an older audience as well, they're at the office space. What could I do? What's going to entice them during that time? If I'm selling water in my subconscious and I'm running it to an audience 35 plus, they're definitely at the office. So a person will be in the office drinking the water. Plays on the subconscious. You're at the office. Understand the psyche of the platforms, and you'll generate a lot better results.
Well, let's talk about that. Like, I think part of one of the couple of questions I had lined up is especially B2C brands, like obviously businesses who sell directly to consumers, or D2C, direct to consumers. Essentially, we always believe that Facebook and Instagram would probably be the best for that, but I would love to get your perspective on the matter. Is like saying, like, what is today, in your opinion, platforms that should be considered in terms of consumer brands, and then we'll talk about B2B brands, like obviously businesses who sell products and services directly to other businesses.
For sure.
But from a consumer's perspective, consumer-facing brands, platforms, like, what do you guys focus on right now, and essentially what do you see happen in the near future?
So we don't do content, right? I'm a brand guy. We don't do content for clients. So we really play in the advertising space. We are where the land grab is, where the real estate is. So as you know, Facebook and Instagram, as well as Google, it's dependent for clients, right? So not everyone should be on Google. You shouldn't be on every platform. It doesn't work that way. If I was looking from a content and a brand awareness perspective, Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, depending on what product you have, right? And depending on your audience, your target market, and how your brand appears to people. I was saying this to Vivaldo, one of the team members, and we're talking about the Colin Kaepernick whole thing, right? Nike executed that Colin Kaepernick thing so well because it was the identity of Nike. So Seth Godin said it so well. It's like, if New Balance had to do it, it's not going to make sense because their identity, their core of it doesn't suit them just being controversial, but Nike's does. So same with the platform. Does your brand's communication fit that platform, especially as a brand creating the content, right? And that's why I said use influencers, right? I might be an influencer and I'll go sit at Starbucks, right? And I pay my Starbucks, my Starbucks influencer. Starbucks as a brand, I don't think should be on TikTok, because what are you going to do, aside from your employees? But if I pay an influencer to do it, I make a lot of coffee chats at Starbucks, right? Get an influencer who's like an MC. Here in South Africa, we've got someone on MTV called Kim Jade. Get her to do coffee chats at Starbucks. Quick 5-minute segments. It doesn't have to be TikTok, but Instagram as well. And she does these coffee chats with people talking about controversial things over a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You know what I mean? Be a bit creative in how you want to create the content side of things as well.
Yeah, I did a TikTok training seminar last week Friday over a Zoom. And I think in essence, I'm not, by no means am I a TikTok expert. I've got 22 followers, which is probably the lowest amount of followers on TikTok by anybody.
No, I think I've only got 8.
But for me, I just don't enjoy it. I think I'm just one of those people who are not that creative, so I've got nothing to say on the platform, and I'm like, you'll see if you go to my channel, I've posted like 6 posts, and probably 3 of them are contextual to the platform. But from us, I was like, I looked at him like, this is not my strength. Like, I'm not that kind of creative person who's gonna, and I also don't have the time to sit and think about every video that I'm gonna create. And I think it can be spontaneous, but I realized for myself, it's not a platform that I mean, I understand the downside of not putting time and effort into it, but on a personal level, I'm happy with that, and I've already did the math in my head. But I think for brands, we need to understand that this is one of the stats that I've pulled up. TikTok's fastest growing demographic currently is 25 to 34. And funny enough, that demographic, that's internationally, by the way, not South Africa specifically. And internationally, that demographic is already on 32% of its users. So not only is it the fastest growing, it's also now 1/3 of the users. And I think I've heard a lot of, I would say, thought leaders in the space suggest that TikTok, give it 2 years before you start focusing on it. And I'm like, I think it's faster than that. Like, I think it's growing. Yeah, I think it's at a point where it's going to happen. You should, as a brand, look at it in the next 6 months, just purely because of the fact that the fastest growing demographic are the people who spend the most money on consumer-facing brands right now. And it's going to have the most spending power in the next 10 years. And on top of that, to think that we've had Facebook pages for 10 years already.
For sure.
You know?
Boom. I'm going back to Starbucks again. They ran a series of how to do different images. Get a barista. Like, some baristas can do art, like proper, you know what I mean? And we're seeing content like that do well on TikTok platforms. So, you know how your Starbucks baristas do, like, it's a land grab, it's cheap, you grow really quick. If you enter it now, you're in a really good position to do well.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, in essence, you mentioned Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and there was another platform, and YouTube, obviously, as which is more of search engine, I suppose. But from a social media perspective, I can understand. And then from the B2B space, you guys obviously, I mean, everybody believes it's LinkedIn. Anything else?
LinkedIn, Google, YouTube.
Yeah.
To be very honest with you,
just purely because Google's got the intent, obviously.
It's got the intent. YouTube's got the intent as well, and then LinkedIn just being a very social platform from a B2B perspective, sharing thought leadership. Again, on LinkedIn, as a business owner, I wouldn't necessarily do it under my brand, but I do it under me as the personal brand, and that's a whole different conversation.
And for the business owners listening, do you maybe want to explain the difference between, advertising when there's intent, like for example on Google, and maybe advertising in order to create intent, because they will obviously be LinkedIn, where you have to go and fetch that decision maker and then get them interested. Like, I think a lot of people maybe don't know the core difference between Google and a social platform like LinkedIn. Do you want to maybe just share your perspective on that?
So whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, it's still both. I have to fetch intent. I have to go fetch the customer as opposed to me just being in front of them. On Google, I'm already searching for the product that I want. I know exactly what I want. I want the lapel mic from Rode. Boom. I'm going there to search it, right? So that's a product that, what content are you really going to create around a lapel to sell it on a social media platform? It's an intent-based product, in my opinion. Whereas the difference on LinkedIn, obviously, is you're going to go fetch them, and you've got to spark their interest in that brand and product before. So as a service-based business, I'd be on Google. As a DTC product brand or business owner, I'd be on LinkedIn and so forth.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think what I've learned is, and this is just different ways of perspective, but what I've realized, and this is where I'm going to not disagree with what you're saying, because I do agree 100% with what you're saying, but I do think there's an alternative, but that's only when you have the necessary data. So we use Facebook aggressively to grow our business, and it's worked really well for us.
For sure.
But I spoke to someone else the other day who's been trying it, and it has just not been working for their B2B business. And then I thought to myself, how can I, potentially give some strategic advice? And I did, and he came back and he just explained that it didn't work. And I know it's not because of a lack of an execution perspective. I just know because he's technically inclined to run his own ads, and like, he's very clued up. But
is it his service?
No, it's not his service. So what it came down to is the data that we have. So it came down to the data, that existing data in the business. So what I mean by that is that Facebook allows you to do lookalike audiences.
100%.
And as a business, we're very fortunate. But we get a lot of leads on a monthly basis, and an annual basis, there's quite a substantial amount of leads that we get. And then we qualify those leads. So the first tier would be to get people interested in working with us. The second tier would be to get people who we think would be a fit for us. And then the third tier would be who are our ideal clients. And with that information, we've got that person's contact number, email address, everything else that's probably necessary in order to...
What? Lead magnets, funnel strategies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we run ads on Google and we've got our own strategies in place. But because we have that data, one strategy that's been working really well for us this year is running Facebook ads for our agency. And why the reason it's working well is because we have existing data that we give Facebook and we create lookalike audiences.
Sure.
So I think Facebook's been around for 15 years now, if it's not, like I'm speaking under correction, but it's close to 15 years, if not more. And essentially, they've got so much information on people. Like I think we underestimate how much information it's really got on us as individuals. So what we've done is we've said, these are ideal clients. When we've got let's for example, say 100 or 200 of them in our database. Not that we have that amount of clients now, but just who's come through our books over the last couple of years. And essentially what we've done is we said to Facebook, hey, go and find similar people to this. So when every single other agency starts or a service business starts, they go and focus on interest targeting and that's fine. But I've seen that the results at the end of the day are obviously not as great. So because of the fact that it's more intent driven, Google is more intent driven.
But you've also been able to, and I think something that people need to know is that what you've also been able to do is generate those leads from Google ads, right?
Yes.
Which means that if you have a Facebook profile, and a lot of people don't even have pixels on their website, which is the sad part, because if you've generated organic content, you'll just take that and throw it, and that has even more intent.
Yes.
So that's another way of how to do it, you know what I mean? Create a different custom lookalike audience and a specific audience about people who came organically from Google, right? Yeah. Because there was intent from there. And then you run them ads on Facebook because they're already there.
Well, that's exactly it. So what we did was in the first year, we spent probably most of our money on Google. Just purely because we had to fetch the people who already have intent to work with agencies.
Generated the pixel data.
And this is why it's
the leads.
And this is why it's a long-term strategy, because like you said there, you need to generate that information. And as a service business now, we have a system in place that if I push the button now and I put money behind it now, we have leads tomorrow. That's the amazing thing of the system. It's off currently just purely because of the thing that we actually at a point where, and I mean, this is now for the podcast, but we actually point where we're firing clients who's wasting, who we just feel. But I mean, I know that if I push that button, because of the fact that we've been working on the system for a while, because we've got the data, because we understand the power of social media, if I push that button tomorrow where I switch that ad on, I know for a fact that we're going to have, it's going to start generating leads for the business. And in essence, what that's helped us do as a business, it allows us to have a more of a predictable revenue model. So ideally what it means is that if we want more leads, we push this button and then the leads come through and then we put, and then we essentially scale the business.
So let me ask you, what did you think a business owner needs to do right now? Because what I'm thinking in my head is do both, have two different strategies for both. But again, it depends on the product, man. Like if we're going into a service business, focus on Google, right? Try to generate some intent there. If you're really targeting the right keywords, removing the negative keywords, getting everything right there, you'll generate some good traffic. Also, it's more expensive. That's why it's easier and cheaper to advertise on social. But if you have a pixel, you'd be again, fool not to have a pixel on your website, but if you have one, it becomes so much easier because when you're rerunning those ads, you're running it to people who have already been on your website.
So a lot of business owners don't know about the pixel, like I said.
They don't.
And I think it's essentially like if
and the value in it.
Yeah, so I think if you're listening to this, that, just Google Facebook pixel, what it does, and essentially it allows you to capture information, it's not necessarily on a subjective level where you actually literally, on a level of you're not capturing hardcore information in terms of email and contact numbers about a specific visitor who's visiting your website. But what Facebook does is it keeps track of this encrypted data, technically, and it allows you to look for similar people who visited certain pages of your site, or it allows you to remarket people who visited your site through cookies.
Sure. And the process, how I like to explain when I used to do CVPs, is what we call it, outreach videos, sorry for cutting short, is just like your phone has its own code. Every phone's got a serial code. Every Facebook account has a serial code, and that's what the pixel essentially gathers, and then does that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's capturing information basically, but not on a level where you actually sit and be able to look at the information. But you can use that obviously encrypted data in order to improve your targeting. And I think that's exactly what we've done as an agency, which we're very fortunate about. But it's also been a long-term approach. Like we had to get good quality leads through Google, like you said now. Like, and this is boiling back to the question that we asked. Like, as a service business or as a B2B business, where do you advertise? And I do think LinkedIn and Google is probably the best place. Google, looking for people who have intent. LinkedIn, creating that intent under the customer, because look, and I do agree, it's definitely the product matters. Like, it's very difficult to make certain products attractive and sexy, and at a point where you're like, oh, I want that product right now. But I think that also stems from a creativity level, because we found ways to make our services look like we were busy working with a new video now, which I'll share with you later. But we have a sales system video like it's quite powerful, and it's worked really well for us because essentially, it's kind of like inspiring, motivational, and with the right copy, it's supporting
it. It works, but
and it just
come
works.
back to it from the beginning. The content. Yeah. And the copy has to be good.
100%.
So you're going to lose me.
Yeah, so creativity will be obviously the deciding factor in terms of whether you can actually sell that product on social or not. Because if you lack creativity, you won't be able to make that product look attractive. So you won't be able to create that intent. But yeah, like I think on a side note, like I think any other platforms that you think, as opposed to, there's Snapchat around, anything else that you think small business owners should be focusing on right now? Email, anything else? Just
okay. Facebook, Instagram, Google, LinkedIn as the business owner for your personal brand, and you've got to generate leads and emails. When a customer comes onto your Shopify store, whether they bought or not, they have to first put in their email address. How do you convert offline? What is the communication offline? What value are you giving offline? How do you treat them? You know what I mean? Someone who's given you their data has gone out of their way to give you stuff because they want it. So treat it like it is that valuable, because whether they purchase today or they purchase a year from now, you've still got their data. And generally, they'll give you their Gmail. They won't give you their work email. So you'll always be in touch with them. Always.
No, 100%. And to conclude, like, this is kind of like where we start wrapping things up. And I think I want to, first of all, thank you for coming through today. And as a last, maybe just a roundup, any last piece of advice for business owners out there who's considering that we are on post-lockdown, considering that people are now looking to start advertising, contextual to that, any last bit of advice that you want to provide people with?
Fix up your website. Figure out how can you build a community offline, run decent ads, and really focus on influencer marketing. I really feel it's one of those things that it's going to be a missed opportunity. Nike, from what I come to understand, so I'm watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan on Netflix. I don't watch series, by the way, but this one I had to just watch. And the episode I watched last night was specific about the Air Jordans and when it became a thing. People, so what? That was in '84 when the Air Jordans dropped, right? So almost 20 years later, when they released, I think they were doing a re-release now because of The Last Dance. So like, we're going to sell a limited supply. Now how much do shoes go for now? And it became less about the shoe and about the culture, right? Nike have built a culture offline. They call them hype beasts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they call them hype beasts. So you go buy a shoe for 5,000, for 2,000 Rand, a couple of years down the line when it becomes valuable, that you can sell it on the shoe market for like 10K. And that's what kind of like the Jordans, the Nike Jordans have come out. Okay. And Nike were attraction, as you've seen if you've read Shoe Dog, Full Night started off as a track business. When he bought Jordan on, that was the first time they made a sneaker, by the way.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books.
100%. And when they brought Jordan on, that's when the game changed. That's what I'm saying. Influencer marketing is so big right now, but people just don't understand how key that is, because people buy into people. We've seen on the platforms, like we're saying, if you're going to go into TikTok, people buy into people. When you're posting content, you'll see yourself, if you had to do a case study and just check your own data, your content that just shows the product over the ones with people on influencer probably do a lot better. So yeah, Nike actually really kicks off from there and built their shoe brand and built a culture out of it off the back of Nike Air Jordans, and then went into Jordans and so forth. You look at any brand that's done a lot big, they always have someone tailored to it. I was in the Uber here and I was thinking, Herbalife wouldn't have taken... Actually, I want to do a case study and I'll go look back because this isn't fact. Yeah. But what I can probably think and guarantee is that when Cristiano Ronaldo became a key integral part of Herbalife, the stock just went up. Why? Because it's Cristiano Ronaldo. People buy into Ronaldo, they buy into the person. So if he's endorsing it, he's saying this is good and I have it on a daily, why else wouldn't I buy the product?
Yeah, it's credibility.
It's credibility. Thing talks about in his USN thing. They brought Yaku in from the beginning. Yaku De Bruyne?
Yaku De Bruyne for USN. I don't know if that's true.
Wasn't it?
No, I don't think it's
I was listening on Martinus thing, and Martinus was interviewing
maybe at very early stages.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying at the very early stages.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
He brought him on. I'm not saying it grew sales, but the fact that personal training or he's in the fitness space, people kind of knowing his name, and it just took it to the next level. So again, not factual. It's not direct facts.
Well, if it wasn't Yaku, it was someone popular.
It was someone popular, 100%. So. We've just seen, man, as a brand, start bringing on people from now, especially if you have momentum and you're growing. But if you're starting from scratch and you don't know what you're doing, I'll just focus on paid advertising.
But before we go, like as a small brand, you can't necessarily. Do you think if you're reaching out to that person with influence, it's going to cost you a lot of money, though?
Not always, to be very honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the right relationships. If you know how to sell and if you're a talksman, I mean...
Would you go the route of finding one person, or would you go the route of finding micro influencers or nano influencers, or rather just find one person who's full of credibility and then back that one person?
I call it the 369. 3 macro, 6 in the middle, 9 at the bottom.
Well, that's the ratio, I suppose.
The ratio of it.
Okay.
But
so 1, 2, 3 ratio.
I would pay the top, offer products to the middle, and then maybe do a bit of a rev share at the bottom, and ambassador kind of thing. Give them a discount code. For anyone who purchases through your discount code, you get X off the top as well. And I mean, you could offer it to all of them, but I guess.
So just to confirm, the ratio is basically 1 to 3. So if it's 369, if it's 5, 10, 15, it's
1, 2, 3, hundreds, bringing it back to the minutes, and that's how I'd focus. So I'd pay at the top, I'd offer products, and maybe pay in the middle, and then I'll just give free at the bottom.
Yeah. Man, thank you for coming through today, and I think a lot of people, I'm confident, a lot of business owners got a lot of value out of this. And where can people get a hold of you, your partner, the business? I mean, feel free to put some shameless 100%. Plugs in here.
Cool. So we have an ebook out called Scaling Recipe, how to scale your business. You can find it on our website at lunadigital.co.za.
Maybe just spell that.
lunadigital.co.za. That's where you can find more about us. On my LinkedIn as well, Nanga Ntsume, as you'll see in the title at the bottom of the video. That's where you can find me on LinkedIn. My partner, Erwin, puts out really good content on his LinkedIn as well. Erwin Linder, ERWIN space LINDER, Erwin Linder. He's our head of performance partner, really decent, got great content, really good content. And that's where you can find us.
Awesome, man. Thank you again for coming through. All the best. And we're going to see you guys next week. Cheers.
Ciao.